Fantasy Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined this week by Paul.
All right, mate.
And Neil.
Hello.
I cannot believe, in light of some of the recent weeks' worth of misery and depression and anger that we've had, that we're going to be able to trumpet this week. But, I mean, I don't want to preempt things, but I think we are, aren't we?
The pinnacle of anger this week, I'm afraid. It won't get worse than this.
I genuinely had a look at the 7 stages of grief earlier because we talked about the Barnsley game. I just felt thoroughly depressed, and that has now moved on. I actually receded in terms of the 7 stages of grief to outright anger now. I'm just so massively fucked off by it. We'll try and get into the reasons why it's so annoying, which is something that we've been asked this week to try and put our finger on it, but I don't think it's possible, but we'll just do what we normally do and rant on for an hour and then sort of call it there. But not before we go with tradition and ask for moments of the week. Neil, do you want to give us yours?
It's not COV related, obviously. I thought England winning against Germany, that was probably my moment of the week. Vardy scoring, Leicester player, but there's someone who's taking his opportunities and making the most of his talent. Good on him. Yeah.
What do you make of the idea of a Harry Kane, Jamie Vardy front two for England?
If the dynamic works, go with it. I mean, I think we're starting to see that confidence in players actually is a lot more vital than named players. So, yeah, if those two are clicking and working and still feeling good about themselves and can still flick the ball in mid-air from 6 yards, then keep going with it.
I was trying to figure out some way of merging the phrases, if the cap fits, wear it, with if the chat shits,
bop it. Yeah.
Bop it? I don't know, but yeah. Paul, moment of the week?
I've got a couple of moments of the week. There was the guy who was extremely drunk in Block 15 yesterday, which obviously you were, but now Joey and Neil used to the other end of the ground. He basically just vomited in the stairwell. Which obviously then led to 20 minutes of us discussing drinking or moments of when we've been drunk and thrown up, which was quite interesting.
During the game.
It took our mind off the game, which was quite nice. One of my other moments of the week was listening to Tony Mowbray's post-match interview where he talked about the season petering out, and I was like, there's 7 games to go, you don't sound as angry as I am, and you're talking about the season petering out and you don't seem that bothered. That sort of really annoyed me. How
can you just give up on a season?
Well,
I don't get it.
As Joey often tells me to do, to just basically leave Twitter alone. the amount of people who are like, yeah, but we'd have taken this look at where we've come from, this is all progress. It's like, yeah, but we're now behind Rochdale. Barnsley, since the 2nd of January, have sort of taken, they were 20 points behind us on the 2nd of January. They're now 6 points clear. I've forgotten the sort of £6 or £7 million that Barnsley has spent in that time. And, all the super players they brought in. I miss when they signed Ronaldo and Messi. Oh, no, they didn't. They're just fucking Barnsley. It's just the amount of people who are actually making excuses for 4 wins in 21 games is beginning to get on my tits. It's like, that's crap. Just say, it's crap. Accept, it's crap. And people are going, oh, well, we're out the playoffs. We'll build towards next season. There's 7 games to go in a season we all thought we had a chance of getting in the playoffs. And it's like, yeah, well, there's always next season. Well,
there's never next season for us.
It's going to be a point where I'm going to turn around and say, there ain't next season. I can't be fucked with it. Because yesterday was a disgrace.
Yeah. Didn't it just feel like those relegation seasons where the opportunity's always there and we just never turned up? But that one when we got relegated from the Championship where 7 games to go and it was just every game we arrived at a match and there was just nothing, absolutely nothing to show that it was a big game. And I felt that yesterday. And like you say, 7, 8 games to go and we're playing like this. It's like they had given up. There's no two ways about it. They had given up last night. It's ridiculous.
Me and Joey have certain reference points. So, sorry, me and my mates. Joey's one of my mates, but we have certain reference points.
Joey and my mates, yeah.
And Neil, I don't know if you went to Charlton away the season that Leicester got relegated and we stayed up.
No, that was the 4-0, wasn't it?
4-1, yeah.
4-1, yeah. And basically, at that point, a load of people I know sort of like, we should have cut Coleman adrift at that point, because he showed at that point he couldn't motivate the team, because the team didn't turn up. They didn't look like a team who were trying to stay up. And what really pisses me off is it's not about the fact that, Caesar have restricted our signings and all that sort of gubbins. Yesterday, the team didn't look like a team that was trying to get promoted. They didn't look like they gave a shit. And that is something the manager can and should be influencing. And I'd have been, if Mowbray had come out after the game and gone, what you saw tonight was not good enough. That's not what my managerial career is about. That's not what Tony Mowbray is all about, that shit. That isn't good enough. That's below the benchmark I set. And it was nothing, season's petering out. It's like, no. You have to lay down a marker so everyone who's at this football club knows that what's happened over the last 21 games isn't good enough and isn't acceptable.
21 games.
And I don't feel like anyone's coming out of the club and going, that, what we've done is not acceptable. All this, we've overachieved, and all the other comments. And, again, it's like Sam Rick. It was like, we played how we know we can, and when we play, it's like, I'm sorry, but that yesterday was shit. It wasn't good enough. Why can't anyone just come out and say, that is why we're missing out in the playoffs? Because we were dreadful. And I don't feel like the club's coming out and basically making the fans feel like they understand what's happened. Because we shouldn't be ninth. We shouldn't be 6 points outside the playoff. We shouldn't be 19 points behind Burton. That is not good enough. But there seems to be a lot of people who are willing to accept it. And it's just, it's getting me down, because it's like, so I know I'm long-winded now, but one of the things Neil often talks about is standards. And it's not expectation that rose this season. At one point, the players were setting a very high standard. And it's against those standards which you've got to judge those players. And you watch people like John Fleck, who set such a high standard at the start of the season. And he's far below that standard now. He's not even in the same category of that standard. And yet we're meant to be willing to accept it. It's like...
But the worst part is, Paul, is that it's... Like you say, we set those standards, but the second half of the season, even if we dropped, we didn't have to be exceptional. Because of all the work we did in that first half of the season, we only had to be okay/reasonable. We only had to win, 30% of the games? Or 40 or something, just a small percentage of the game. And we have fallen below that. It's just, I don't know, is it complacency? Is it just not caring? All of these things come into the mix, but it's just, we didn't even have to be brilliant because of how great we were in the first half of the season. And the fact that somehow, this season, we've managed to inexplicably chuck away something that was so close. I mean, the fact that we were in the playoffs all the way up until, was it early March? We were still in there? It's just, we had every single opportunity afforded to us this season. People go on about signings and everything, but everything was given to us. We're there signing Joe Cole. We've got players like Maddison, who, let's face it, we've got Premier teams after him. We're picking up all these players who nobody else could have a chance of picking up because they just wouldn't want to come to them. We've got Murphy, we've got Armstrong, who Newcastle want back. All this sort of stuff. They're all there. The tools are available to us, but the desire just wasn't there second half of the season. And like Paul, you keep saying about sort of washing it under the carpet. And we knew back in December that things were dropping off, and we did nothing to fix it, nothing to address it. It was just, we're still in the playoffs, so it's fine. until it's too late, until the decline is, the rot's still there and it's so embedded that you just can't do anything about it.
I mean, the reality is, 2 seasons ago, when we played at Sixfield for a season, we had a transfer embargo. That season under Presley, we got 61 points. We're still 5 points beneath that. And Tony Mowbray hasn't had any of the issue. I know everyone's going, look at his budget isn't... Yeah, but Presley didn't have any of the luxuries that Mowbray's had. He didn't have the Rico, he didn't have the players, he didn't have the scouting network, yet Presley still managed to get to 61 points. And it's just... I'm not saying that Stephen Presley should be sacked. Tony Mowbray should be sacked. That's not my point. My point is that he should be asking questions of himself, going, this isn't the first time this has happened. The last 3 seasons, I've started and finished a season. Before Christmas, I've been manager of a team in the top 2 or 3. Second half of the season, it's declined. Why is that? Because people go, oh, it wasn't the same at Middlesbrough. That's down to the way something must be wrong. Because we've had injuries at the back, and we'll discuss this later on. But at the end of the day, we've kept Maddison, who went on loan, but he's still here. Joe Cole's been playing more games recently than he has previously. We've kept the top goal scorer in the division, who's now not top goal scorer because he can't score. We've kept Jacob Murphy. Winslow and Fleck, which he talked about a while ago, when they're back, we'll start winning again. Well, they've been back virtually every week since. We're still not winning. It's just like the excuses are just... I don't want excuses. I don't care. What I want is a way that we're going to get out of this. And signing some kid from the Nike Academy isn't going to make me excited. And, people talk about, Ruben Ramirez will be here next season. Oh, that's great. But, again... We've signed another player who's been put in the side above Ruben Ramirez. He's not going to go away in the summer and come back as Arnold Schwarzenegger. He is, the way he plays will always be slightly lightweight. He's not going to bulk up. So we either don't play him because we never think he's going to be good enough, or we start playing him. But we can't just go, next season he's not going to physically change. He's not that type of player. And it's just...
No other team is talking about next season either. The fact that when we should be solely focused on resurrecting what we should have been and focused on resurrecting our season, we're out talking about, we're building for next season. No other team's doing that. There should be only one focus. It should be getting the results to get us into the playoffs. And I'm speaking as if I would have been speaking last week. Obviously, things have changed now. But it's just... people... It's not a good message. I just think it's just distractions after distractions where the focus should be, how do we fix the situation as we have it now? Because we all know, with the bunch of players we've got, they're not going to be there next year. So we needed to make the most of what we had available to us now. We're not going to have Fleck or Vincent or Cole or Maddison or Murphy or Armstrong or any of the other twats who have messed up the season. We're not going to have any of them. So it's going to be a brand new team, so we shouldn't be looking at that. We should be worrying about what's here and now. The fact that we had an opportunity to make the playoffs for the first time ever.
I think there's a couple of things that I would chip in with. It's interesting when you talk about sort of we won't have Murphy and we won't have Armstrong, we won't have Maddison, presumably. These are the same players ultimately who have played a lot of games during this run, and it was something that popped into my head when I was talking about Fleck earlier. Is my standpoint on Fleck has been that he is a good player because demonstrably he's played well in patches, and that would be the start of the Presley first full season when he was at Sixfields and the start of this season. But the more and more I think about it, the more I think you're not a good player if you have patches of good games. You need to have at least some level of consistency across a season. And what you're looking at now, 21 games is pretty much half a season. And you could, if you continue to run that out, which is what's going to happen between now and May, that's more than half a season where you've been not good enough. And that isn't a good player, is it? What I'm really worried about is that you've got these players who Not all of them, I think but some are living off past glories to a certain extent. And it is funny how short-termist football is, but I think it's pertinent. But what we're worried about, and what I'm worried about at least, is the idea that Mowbray needs to stay next season because he's built up enough goodwill. And I don't think anybody is suggesting that we fire him outside of the most ardent lunatics, but then that's, them for you. But it's based on the idea that he signed enough good players so far this season to warrant him having another crack of the whip and getting a full squad together next season. But actually, increasingly, can you describe all of these players that he signed as good players? Actually, is his transfer hit rate now pretty crap? If we start to objectively,
he's sullied it a bit, hasn't he?
Well, if you start to objectively look through even the sort of players that you were saying were a stick-on hit, it's only realistically Vince Lowe and Armstrong that are the absolute standouts as people who you wouldn't really put a question mark by. And even Armstrong's goals have dried up. But Jacob Murphy, a player that I really, really like, and I would say is fair enough, but has blown pretty cold over the last 20-odd games. Yeah. Joe Cole, I mean, the jury's no longer out for me on that one. That was an experiment that failed, and an experiment that was worthwhile, but that it hasn't worked. Stephen Hunt, Peter Ramage came in for 3 games and immediately went out on loan. This is Presley territory of players coming in and out. And I'm not going to move from the standpoint that he needs next season, he needs to get the opportunity to sign the Vladimir Gerchevs of this world. But actually, the faith that I'd got in that signing policy doesn't bear that much scrutiny, unfortunately.
I mean, that really is emphasised by the striker situation, isn't it? Basically, we have 4 strikers, one of which is Adam Armstrong, who's one type of striker. The other 3 strikers are all pretty much the same type of striker. And between the 3 of them, and I know this is a bit harsh on Darius Henderson, but I've seen that clown try and control a ball and then fall over after running after it. So as far as I'm concerned, that man gets no leeway. He's signed 3 strikers. Between the 3 of them, they've got 6 goals. And Fortune, again, I mean, he was all right on last night, as in he did what Fortune does. He was never going to score. Never in a million years was he going to score. And you're like, well, that's fine, but then don't play him up front on his own, and then just don't give him any service. Or, the reality, I had a very quick look. It was only very quick. But basically, Armstrong's got 32% of our goals, and Murphy's got about 18%. So those 2 players have got 50% of our goals this season. And, fast forwarding to the game last night. When he took Murphy off, the whole team on the pitch had 13 goals between them this season. It's like, that's just not good enough. It's just if you're going to play 4-2-3-1, 2 of the people behind the striker have got to be up around 8, 9, 10 goals. Otherwise, you're just relying on one man to score your goals.
My personal highlight was Jack Stevens' left wing. I thought that was
a
high quality and tactical move there. I thought.
And it was just, we haven't scored in the last 3 home games. And, we missed the penalty, but that was the only real shot we had in anger within the 18-yard box. We don't have shots within the 18-yard box. We don't flood the box. Colchester flooded the box. That's how they scored. And it's just, these are my questions of, I understand that Mowbray has his style of play, which is fine, but it's just, surely if you're going to play 2 defensive midfielders, you need your fullbacks to be able to attack. When one of your fullbacks is 34-year-old Sam Ricketts, who's playing out of position at left back, you're going to be stunted down that one side. And it's like, as I say, this goes back to when I was a long time since I've seen managers have favourites. How Sam Ricketts retains his place in the team. Every week, the Coventry Telegraph have they pick your own team. Every week, Sam Ricketts is not in that team. It's like the Coventry City fans have as a one come to the opinion that he shouldn't be in the team. Yet every week we manage to find a way to shoehorn him in. And I was discussing this with Pritchard last night about Aaron Phillips. I thought Aaron Phillips was harshly done by. The stats back that up. He started 11 games in the league. We've won 5, drawn 5 and lost 1. And that was the Burton game where, okay, he made the mistake and gave away the goal. But since then, he's been dropped. He's been, as Neil put it, he's been punished. And it's, well, who's being punished here? Aaron Phillips or us, the fans, who have to go and Sam fucking Ricketts each week? It's like the guy's no longer good enough. He hasn't been good enough for months. Yet it's symbolic of how we're playing as a team, that he just retains his place. And this is, I know, again, we're going off on a slight tangent. Talk about the sort, we've had all these injuries in defence. Well, since the Burton game, Aaron Phillips hasn't been injured. He could have started. He had a run of games up to the Burton game when he was dropped. He could have played every game at right back. So that would have been your right back solved. He could have played Ricketts at centre half. And up until 3 games ago, he could have played Stokes at left back. That could have meant that 3 of his back 4 were pretty much unchanged until, 3 games ago. If he'd have wanted to, but he chose not to. And it's also, the other thing that was getting to narc at me, is the people talking about Ben Turner's injury. If Ben Turner hadn't got injured, he probably would have only played another game for us anyway.
Yeah.
Because the player at Cardiff who was keeping him out of the Cardiff team also got injured that week. Ben Turner was never going to be with us for 6 months. He was only ever going to be with us for a month to get fit, because you could tell he was too good for League One.
I think there was a possibility that he could have stayed for longer than that, unless that player got injured. I think it was Mark Wilson that got injured at Cardiff, and as soon as he got injured, they'd pretty much said, we would have taken him back straight away, but it just so happens that injury happened. That's moot. There's no way we would have ever kept him in real life. I think there was a chance of it, but like you say, it couldn't have happened.
Anyway, Peterborough, Friday night.
I don't know. Listen, this is for the listeners. We talked about this as we were coming on air as to whether we try and make any sort of meaningful dissection of these games. Cue someone out there saying, "Oh, you don't normally." Do you know what? We try. Give us a break. I don't know. Do we want to try and sort of? Do we have 5 minutes on each to try and talk about the sort of?
I've only got a few things to say. A few things which I think are I'll say pertinent, and I'll use it in the loosest possible sense. But it's kind of things which have happened in that match, which I think sort of continue a thread throughout the season.
Go on.
One of them was, I think Mowbray's method of changing the game is only ever gung ho. And that game, to me, was just him throwing away any semblance of a formation with far too much time left on the clock. We were in that match. I mean, we were 1 down. I think, and out of nowhere, I think it must have been 30 minutes to go, he completely destroyed the formation. He brought on another attacker. He decimated the midfield, and it just became a square. We had Fleck in the middle and Cole next to him trying to do something, and it was just, there was no shape, and we just became so vulnerable. And we're a fragile shell of a team anyway. But to do that to us when we were still in a match, we still had a chance of getting something out of it. We were still finding ways to break. That was just, and it's not the first time. There's so many times where too early in the match, his approach to trying to change it is to completely destabilise our structure, and we can still compete. I mean, I don't see why it's it shouldn't be mutually exclusive that you can either attack or defend. You should be able to do both. You should be able to have a solid unit, and if you want to get a bit more attacking, you should still be able to do that without playing 6 fucking attacking players on the pitch and completely decimating what's already a very scared-looking defence. And we just offered them onto us. I mean, you had Vince a lot in defence, for crying out loud, that game. And it was just, I mean, that was another thing. Well, instead of retaining what was quite a stable structure, Fleck, Vince Lott in the middle, he's bringing Vince Lott in, which then means you need to bring Biggie into the midfield, which, again, we've spoken about how sort of hot and cold Biggie is. And it was just these decisions which all come to sort of destabilise a unit, which is already struggling as it is. I think that was my biggest frustration from the game. Clearly, the first half we dominated. We should have put the ball away. Probably sort of symbolic of our sort of lack of confidence at the moment. The fact that we weren't as clinical as we should have been. But we were in that match, and I just felt like we completely threw it away. We just said, right, look, 30 minutes to go, have a go at us, and we will try and catch them. And that just wasn't the right call at all. And that wasn't even hindsight. That was as it was happening. I was saying, look, this is too early to do this. We're away from home. they've already seen that we need a really clear opportunity to score, and actually saying that we got a clear opportunity, only Fallon's on his arse, didn't he, Henderson? So that wasn't brilliant, but yeah, that was just my main assessment of that match, where we were in the match and we lost it. I thought it was pure tactics that time, but we just handed it over.
I felt like we could have had. I felt like in the first half we had numerous chances.
Oh, certainly did. That's the thing. We should have scored, but they were falling into people who they're not quite there at the moment. So they should have scored, but they didn't. But that didn't mean that we needed to then destabilise everything that we'd done prior to that to try and find a winner. We were still creating. There were still gaps for us to work within. But as soon as you do what we did to the team, and we just became right, there's a defence and there's an attack, and there was just John Fleck trying to do something in the middle of the pitch, and it just didn't work at all.
Any more on Peterborough? Is that you? Is that your full thing?
That's me, yeah.
Paul, have you got anything? Oh, go on.
Yeah, Peterborough. The second goal, me and Joey talked about this a lot, especially the first time it really became evident was the Fleetwood game, and that's just how much space we give behind our fullbacks. And the second goal came from them basically passing the ball into that massive gap behind Sam Ricketts. And you can't give that much space when the guy tracking back is 34, because he doesn't have the legs to recover. And it was just, they played that ball into the gap. Winslow doesn't really know where to go because he shouldn't really be there. They've scored. And then the third was us once more dicking around in our third, trying to play delightful football out of our third, and then giving them the ball in our third, so that it's one pass and the guy's in the penalty area. And it's just this whole, I've got a philosophy of playing football, we play from the back. That's fine if you've got any game awareness or any match management in your squad. And like the other day, we were having dinner, and my youngest daughter was being a sort of bit ill.
Bitch.
No, she was being and my oldest was being a bit of a pain, and she was like, I'm not hungry, I'm hungry, I want to cuddle. And then Kate threw up, and Mary, being 3.5 and not being able to really understand what was going on, was like, I want to cuddle. And it's like, me and your mother are sorting your sister out, who's just vomited everywhere. Like, read the situation. You're 3.5, you're not going to. And you think, I understand why she like mentally can't emotionally cope with what's going on. But when I see people like John Fleck pass the ball back to Lorenzo in our third when we're chasing a game to a guy who's got a player on him, so he has to then quickly try and then he doesn't try and just whack it, he tries to chip it to someone else. You're like, between the two of you, you've got probably 800 games worth of match time. Why are you still making these mistakes? We've conceded a third. That's just killed us. I'm so glad I'm watching this. And it was just so... We're making the same mistakes we're making all season. And that's the other thing. One of the other things that bugs me. It's just like, teams don't particularly have to work hard to score against us. And Colchester didn't really have to work that hard to score against us yesterday. And as you say, it's like, can't we just... You don't have to win every game 1-0, but you have to be able to have a clean sheet every now and then. And it's just changing the back four every game doesn't help, especially when you're moving players around. And it's like you can't make one decision. You can't just replace like with like. He has to make one substitution that changes 5 players' positions.
I am going to make a bit of a rogue suggestion at this point, because I feel like this has just been one long primal scream, as I kind of expected it to be. But since the Barnsley game, I've had a sort of unshakable thought of, I wonder if there's a whole life out there on a Saturday. And I think about yesterday, where, now I was fortunate enough that I couldn't go, but that you... coming all the way from Manchester, having to leave early because of circumstances anyway, and then getting back at the time that you got back at. And we started to touch on this a few weeks ago, and we kind of ran out of time and didn't get to. But I think it's an interesting thing of why we're clearly so angry about it, and it's clearly such a negative force. What compels us to keep going?
That's interesting because that's one of the points I made in my blog yesterday was why are we doing it, and why are we doing it when there doesn't seem to be any genuine intentional, I'm going to say the word care about actually getting out this league? Because I do feel that. I do feel like the fact that we're going to be in League One next year doesn't bother that many people. And it should. Because that's like, if we head into a season, the whole reason you only watch a football game or a football team is because you want to get some reward from it and you want to win. And that's why I go, because I think, here we go. Yeah, I'm going to watch Coventry, and they could be turning it around. And brilliant. We might get promoted this season, and I might finally have something to cheer. But like you said, there has to come a point where there's just no sign of that. And why would we continue to make ourselves unhappy? Because that's all it does. I mean, I woke up this morning bloody miserable, all because of a football match. Actually miserable. Just because a football match didn't go my way, and that shouldn't be the case because it is only a game. But we're also consumed by it. We're also immersed in this culture of football, and it's part of our life and part of what we do and a part of our routine. That when things are so relentlessly bad, and there's just no seeming intention to change it, because there's not. I don't see it at the moment. I don't see anybody around the club or at Mowbray or anybody coming out and saying, look, I'm absolutely livid. This, we should have done so much better. He's had months to be sort of changing our mindset and like pushing us, making us believe that he's doing something. And I get so fed up with the post-match non-motivation. It's just him. I know it's only personality, but it's just him mumbling on, not giving us any reasons or explanations or anything to believe that he's actually going to do something to change it next time. It's just the same old, it didn't go away this week, but we'll give it another go next week. We'll see how the cards fall. And it's just all, I don't know. If there will come a point, I'm sure, if it carries on like this, because it's just wishing their lives away.
Have you guys seen Inside Out yet?
No.
I watched it for the second time last week over Easter, and I loved it even more than the first time that I watched it. But ultimately, it's the look at how sort of happiness and sadness interact with each other, and sort of, I'm sure it's not too much of a spoiler to say that the sort of overall conclusion is that you need some sadness to sort of understand your happiness, and that the two are linked intrinsically.
Hold on, Joe, what is Inside Out?
The Disney film, the Pixar film.
I have seen it. I saw it the other day. Okay, yeah. I'm in this conversation. Let's go.
But we statistically have shown in that recently is it 46 years without a top 6 finish?
Yeah.
Right. There is outside of, and I think outside of social interaction and the sort of human animal being a fan of routine and socialising and things like that, there is no joy to be derived from this.
No.
And at what point do you just go, you know how we get together on a Saturday? Why don't we do that somewhere nice?
For me, I think next season I'll get a season ticket because Sherwin's getting one for his 18th birthday, and I feel like I've dragged him into this mess. So it'd be unfair to cut him off. However, I don't think I could continue to go through this because this season, we talked about this a while ago, and one of the worst seasons for me being a Cov fan was the season under McAllister. We went through the second half of the season, and I think we won. I looked at it, we won 3 times in 23 games in the second half of the season. And we still managed to pick up more points in those 23 games than we currently have in the 16 games second half of this season. I think we're still like 4 points behind or something. So the second half of this season could be the worst that I've known in terms of points per game, and you think, this is just shit. This is just, as you say, I know people post me a bit of a miserable bastard. I don't derive any enjoyment of being a miserable bastard because my football team's lost again. And I got really annoyed with sort of Mowbray's sort of, I said, if he'd have just come on and been really, like, I'm sorry, that's just not good enough. He'd have been like, oh, okay, the players aren't playing for you anyway, so you can just ball them out. Why not? What have you got to lose? And it was just we go on to the Gillingham game, and you know, if we're not up for that, then we'll get beaten. It's like you got beat by a Colchester team who just, you know, not a great Colchester, a shit Colchester team have just beaten you 1-0. And you're like, well, if you're not mentally prepared for Gillingham, you'll lose. And it's like, just come out and say, look, that isn't good enough. And one of the things that really, with retrospect, really annoys me from our chat with Kieran, and it's not Kieran's fault, I think Kieran's being honest, where he goes, when Mowbray looks back at the Middlesbrough time, if he thought, oh, I failed those 2 seasons, it would change his perspective. And you're like, so does Mowbray think he did a great job at Middlesbrough and was just unlucky to be fired and unlucky to have the squad he had? Because the reality is, Middlesbrough fans aren't calling for Mowbray to come back. They think he did an alright job. He did make some good signings, but at the end of the day, they wanted to get promoted. So they got rid of him. And it's a case of like, and someone said this to me, who's the real, you know, the real key one to keep? Is it Mowbray or is it Venus who brings the players in? And you're like, well, you know, is a key thing. And I know we've sort of gone off with this discussion. It's like, you watch it and you think, yesterday, I enjoyed listening to my mates tell me stories about how they'd got so drunk they'd vomited. I didn't particularly enjoy anything that was happening on the pitch. And that's not unusual. Back in the Coleman, we used to sit there and talk about Darren Brown and all that shit. And as you say, it's almost like, is it a case of I go down for the conversation with my mates, or do I go down to watch the football? And part of me's like, well, why should I bother going to the last 3 games of the season? The players have obviously given up. Mowbray's clearly given up. So why should I bother? And you think, well, I've also said I'm going to go to Wigan and Oldham. So at the last 7 games, I'm going to go to 5 of them. What's in it for me? What benefit am I going to get out of going to these 5 games?
Well, Wigan and Oldham, the drinking, obviously.
Well, yeah. I mean,
by the way, I'm only talking about home games, and I'm saying, what's the point? Away days, regardless of the result, are usually pretty decent.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, I'm going to go to Wigan with Mary, so it's not even like, actually, no, I don't really.
Yeah, I know.
I don't really. I've never associated football with drink. I know lots of people. That's how they connect it. For me, it's sort of I go because I actually enjoy watching football. But there are sort of yesterday where we sort of the substitutions we made, the decisions we were making. You were like, this isn't even enjoyable to even work out. I see what you've done. You put Joe Cole in defensive midfield, and you put Roman Vincelo as the number 10. I've noticed this. My brain's registered this, and my brain's gone, that's fucking stupid. And then my brain's gone, so, John, you're telling us about how you threw up once. And it's just like, well, that's just... I don't know if you saw as well. Sorry, I'm going on to the Colchester game. There's nothing you can do to stop me now. I don't know if you noticed this, Neil, but we had a corner right in front of us, and Jody Jones and Murphy went for a short corner alongside Joe Cole, and then we had 4 people in the box. We had 3 people virtually taking a corner.
They did that about 4 times, didn't they? It was just...
Yeah.
What are you playing at?
What is that? Just
it's some sort of decoy method, yeah. Just more players. Just put everybody on the touchline. I think.
I saw your photo of that, Paul, and it looked like a 7-a-side match.
Yeah, it was
the amount
just
of players that were out of shot, and you've got most of the pitch in shot, but just you just had the feel of it. You just like, oh, you've given up then. I don't give a shit.
And I felt really sorry for George Thomas. 'Cause it's like, well, we haven't seen you for about 6 months, and now we're lobbing you on in this game that we desperately need to win, and we're going to shove you up front as a striker alongside Marcus Tudgay, but neither of you have really got a particular position. And it's like, go forth, George, and rescue us. And it's like, well, how's that fair on the kid? How does that make any sense whatsoever? Because even if he'd have bagged a hat-trick, he wouldn't have started the next game. I bet he's not even on the bench for the next game. It's just plucking people out of nowhere, throwing them in, seeing if they sink or swim. Then regardless of what they do, taking them out and putting someone, putting one of your favourites back in. And it's just baffling. I don't know. I think, Joey, you made the right decision yesterday to not, I know it was difficult for you to attend, and it was a lot easier for you not to bother. And you're just like, why are we here?
We're past the point of being able to understand, aren't we? It's because it's so relentless. It's every week there's just a load of incomprehensible stuff going on. And Joey, you mentioned earlier about the whole 46 years thing. That stat all came out this week and it sort of blew up because people started to notice it. But I think what really gets me, and I just can't quite understand, is sort of the stark contrast between us on 46 years and then the next team, which is
17, I think.
17 years. Is it Fulham or someone? Or something?
Bradford.
No, it's Bradford.
And Bradford were promoted 2 seasons ago.
2 years ago, and they were 7th.
So, but even then, it's a period of time, and the Fulham one, they're like 50, but they were in the Premiership, so you can deal with, it's a shame, you have to go watch Cristiano Ronaldo play, heaven forbid. It's that sort of stuff, but I can't quite get my head around why all these other teams, they go through these cycles of at least having good seasons, and I know we had the Premiership for that point in time, but it's been so long since that point, and at no point since then have we even come close.
I would suggest that football is such an odd game that sometimes the margins as fine as being able to find an Adam Armstrong out of your arse can probably do that. Do you know what I mean? There's been examples the last time that, and I know this is United, that last United team that won the league was De Gea in goal and Van Persie up front. There wasn't a team anywhere to be seen, was there? It was just arbitrary. It was just it was the quality at the back and at the top. And I think a lot of teams probably look out by finding someone who scores 30 goals out of nowhere, or you look at Kevin Phillips, or you look at Jamie Vardy, I guess is a really perfect example of it. Football is too inconsistent, especially in the Football League, for you to not have that spell at some point.
That's annoying, isn't it? Why aren't the law of averages going our way for
And once? We're talking about sixth. We're not talking about winning a league or even coming runner-up. Sixth is what we're talking about. And
that's the benchmark, isn't it? Potentially a good season. If you finish sixth, you can probably feel quite good at the end of that season. We've not had any of that. And like you say, it's all these players who, at least you bring in players and they have a good season. We bring all these players in who have great seasons and they come to us and it's like, they're just rubbish. Like we brought in Sean Goater that time, and I know he's old, but you can sort of guarantee if Sean Goater was at any other team, probably at that point he would have done something. And then there's just like an endless list of these players who you think, oh well, they've done brilliantly for other teams. Let's get them in for a season. And needless to say, they come up to Coventry and somehow they are absolutely useless. And it's just, like I said earlier, I just think, why aren't the law of averages helping us out at least once and just saying, oh, this season we're not going to have a bunch of players going for the motions. We're going to have people who have actually got the right mentality. And that's what always brings me back onto my whinge about culture, because I feel like it needs to be something bigger. There needs to be something constant there, which is impacting the way people are playing. Because you can't bring in all these players who are all good for other teams, and they come to us, and then they play at such a level where it's just... I mean, this second half of the season, all we've had is a bunch of 11 players all losing confidence at the same time, all not putting in the requisite amount of effort. How does that happen? That shouldn't be right.
I think, on Joey's point, I think you sort of say that United want it because of De Gea and Van Persie. They also want it because of Ferguson.
Yeah, I know. And that's what it's a pretty poor example, but
I think you're also. It's a poor example, but a good example because there were lots of managers out there who had never beaten Alex Ferguson's Man United team, and there were lots of teams who went to Old Trafford and they had lost before they went out on the pitch. The season after, when it was David Moyes' Man United team, it's like, we beat David Moyes when he was at Everton. Oh, we're not frightened anymore. And there's got to be something to be said that lots of clubs come to the Rico and are like, this is a really nice stadium. If we want to get a result here, because getting a result at this stadium would be a good thing. And the amount of times we see teams get a result and they all go and celebrate in front of their fans, and it's like this massive, look where we've won. And you've got the Rico, I still think is an albatross around our neck. At the moment, it's too big for us. It's clearly too big for us. I know we had this discussion at the start of the season. I still don't think having all the fans in one stand helps. I'd rather have the top half the stand closed and everyone pushed forward, so we had fans behind the goal and to the side. I still think that would be. My personal belief is I think that would just give a better atmosphere. At least look less shit than having two empty stands.
Yeah.
Because I think it must affect the players when they come out and they just see. Oh, it's like they come out and they see this great wall and it's like, and they look left and they see an empty stand. And I think there is, obviously, it goes back to that Clinton O'Morrison comment. It's Cov, isn't it? And you just get that feeling. It's sort of, I'm not having a go at Kieran Crowley, but it's like, every time I've been here, we've been crap after Christmas. As if that was an allowable excuse.
It's like the norm, isn't it?
It's Coventry are crap after Christmas, so we've been crap after Christmas with Coventry. And I know that's not what he was saying, but it was almost like people within the club know that. That's got to be like, first thing you got to, so it's like that attitude won't stick anymore. We can't just go, Coventry were crap after Christmas. That sort of ethos should be dispensed from this football club. We shouldn't be making allowances for, this is an improvement on last season. Last season we nearly got relegated. It's like, that's fine, we nearly did. However, this team has got players, as me and Neil have both been saying for a while, who other clubs would kill for. And yet, with sort of the whole attitude is, next season, we're building for next season. And you think, the players you've got at the top of the table, your Armstrongs, your Murphys, even your Raider Johnsons, your Ben Turners, they're not here next season. It's the peripheral players who are here next season. The players who you add to a base. We haven't got the base of a side because we haven't got any strikers for next season. It's a gamble again. It's like we're either going to give that 18-year-old kid a chance from the youth, or we're going to have to go out and probably get another Premiership loan. And there's no guarantee that Premiership loan is going to get 18, 19, 20 goals. He might do. We might get another Adam Armstrong. We might get a Chuba Akpom. It's completely arbitrary, isn't it, what we're going to get? I don't know, it's just so dispirited at the moment. And I just don't feel like the club understands what we're going through, or at least I don't feel like the club have accepted the fact that they've wasted a great opportunity. And I think I felt that when we were going through it. It was almost like denial. It's all right, we're still in the top six. We only lost because of this mistake, and we didn't have Winslow and Fleck, but we're back together now. And again, I know it's my personality, but if I'd have been Biggie and it'd been a case of, we haven't had Fleck and Winslow, so you can't expect us to win, I'd be like, so you think I'm shit then? So why you got me here? And I think it's that sort of, reliance on, now we've got Joe Cole and Madison together, we're going to beat everyone. It's like, so everyone else isn't good enough. It's just, I don't know, some of the messages, and I know we discussed this, and I know it's sort of you're reading into it what you're reading into it, but sometimes the messages coming out of the club haven't been, we're a tight unit, we're in this together. It's, I've got my favourites, and when they're not playing, I have to play Ruben Ramirez. But luckily we've got Stephen Hunt.
Poor Ruben Ramirez. That's broke my heart more than anything else this season.
He's definitely a starter as well, isn't he? He's not someone, right, Ruben, come on and fix everything for us. It's not fair on him. He's not that player. He's part of a nice, vibrant, starting, attacking lineup, which he showed earlier on in the season, and he played well. And then it became, no, we're not going to play you anymore, Ruben, but you can come on when we're absolutely desperate and just, try and do something about it.
Do you remember the look on his little face when he struck up that little relationship with Madison at the start of the season?
That's so sexy, wasn't it? All that stuff they were doing.
Just seems like it's a different season. Yeah. Just interestingly, I was looking at the league table where you were talking earlier, Paul, and saying that we've got 13 goals out on the pitch. Do you know that we're the 6th highest scorers in the league? It's astounding to me. I almost think that's kind of the season in microcosm, is that we could have scored 65 goals so far this season. Sorry, 59 goals so far this season. And yet, at this point in time, could only produce 13 of them out on the pitch at any one time. And I know it's heavily skewed with Armstrong being there, but I think it's indicative of his drop-off in goal return as well, even if he had been out there, if you look at what he contributed recently. And I just think, I can't... The touch point that we keep going back to, which is fitting given who we've got on Saturday, is the Gillingham game. But I just keep looking back I can't stop looking back at the Millwall game and the 3rd game of the season. And I just think that I can't wrap my head round. Bear in mind that we haven't been poached in the same way that we have done previously. I know that Madison was signed, but he came back. And I just think the difference between that team and this team, both in personnel and intent and ethos and everything, I don't get it. What
do you think about Jim O'Brien not being here? How much of an impact?
I think I've probably spoken too much about the impact of Jim O'Brien going. I don't think you can overestimate how big that is. I think we talked about it. And again, in terms of touch points, if we had one of them big word graphs from things that you, where, do you know what I mean? Where the words are
word
big,
cloud,
they come up, yeah. If we had one of
big
those, is Jim O'Brien sets the tempo, and Jim O'Brien was at the forefront of that Gillingham win at home. That would be written in big letters everywhere. And I think that what we're talking about when it comes to caring and passion and everything is Jim O'Brien in a human being, isn't it?
You get people.
Yeah, go on.
Sort of the message was around. They didn't want to be here, but I thought that message was sort of born out of him being told that we weren't going to play. He wasn't going to play that much.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Just tell him.
Just tell him he's playing.
Tell him, we're going to play you, Jim. We need to keep you. Why would you not tell Jim O'Brien that you're going to play? Your options then are limited. I mean, you don't have anyone like him in your team. Why'd you leave? And the utter irony now is he's playing for Scunthorpe, who are probably going to finish above us.
Yeah,
they're level on points. He's absolutely dragging them, to within reach of the playoffs. And I know they're on absolutely level points, but they're on a nice upward trajectory with Jim O'Brien playing outrageous assists every game. And it's like, what have we got? We gave that away because we didn't want to. We'd rather he's probably sat there thinking, well, what's Stephen Hunt doing? Why have you brought him in? Stephen Hunt is our Paul Trollope. That's what he is this year. He's just someone bringing in a crap player, because they're a name, and all it serves to do, as far as I can tell, is undermine some of the other players around. And like you say, there's no unity there. It's like, well, we're going to bring in Stephen Hunt, but he's turned up at the club, and even though we know you're playing good football, we're going to bring in Stephen Hunt, who just passed it. Let's face it, and. The fact that he's not playing anymore says everything, really. That was a mistake. And didn't they give him a contract to the end of the season? Yeah. Even after he hadn't played. It was awful, yeah. He stopped playing and just okay, we'll keep you here for the rest of the season anyway. It's just that's mates, isn't it? Just mates.
So you look at the league table now because the South and Sheffield United game's finished.
Are we 10th?
We're behind. We're behind Southend United. we're behind Rochdale, we're level on points with Scunthorpe, level on points with Port Vale, and you're thinking people are deeming that acceptable.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's like nearly getting relegated wasn't acceptable last season. Being 10th in League One with that set of players isn't acceptable this season. It should, that's the reality of the situation. That's a bad season. Yeah. And it's, I don't know, it's just, it's hard.
If you're going to accept what's happened this season, you're going to accept anything, aren't you, really? Let's face it. If you're going to allow what's happened this season, there's no really hope for you, because that drop-off is the most stark drop-off you can possibly imagine. We're probably the worst team in the league, aren't we, at the moment? Just given how many games we've won since the beginning of 2016. It's just terrible.
No, luckily Doncaster on a 16-match unwinning streak.
Yeah, they've lost the last 6.
Yeah, there's Doncaster and there's one other team who picked up fewer points than us.
I've got it here, in fact. It is...
So relegation form. So that's essentially what it is. But I still see people saying, well, you can't expect them to maintain the same form. Okay, don't maintain the same major form of the first 20 games, but you can't do this. You can't go from one extreme to the other. That's too much. It's just... I don't know why people accept it.
No, neither do I. I think, looking at time and the fact that we could talk about this all night, let's probably start wrapping this up, shall we? Let's do another sort of world's smallest bit of Gillingham preview. Best bet, right, guys and girls, just pause this now, wait till Sideways Sammy, Google Sideways Sammy Coventry, I don't know what the address is, just wait until his preview comes out and read that instead. That's proper and it's comprehensive and it's good. But if you are that lazy that you have to hear something, Gillingham are like us if they hadn't gone on a spectacularly bad run. They didn't go on a great run from the last time that we played them. They lost quite a lot of games. I think at the time when we played them, they'd lost 3 or 4 games, and they've lost 10 now. We've now lost 13. Which actually doesn't sound like much, does it? But then we've drawn 11 and they've drawn 9. It's points, isn't it? It's maths. To your point earlier, Neil, these teams around us, that were around us at least, they haven't gone on 8-game winning streaks outside of Wigan and Burton to a lesser extent. They haven't been absolutely wildly dominant. They've just not completely capitulated. But they find themselves there in 4th, where they've been stuck pretty much since we played them earlier in the season. They have...
Jerry, the ridiculous thing is, if we'd have won an amazing 6 games out of 21, would still be in the playoffs?
Well, yeah, there you go.
Yes, 6 out of 21.
Oh, God.
It's frightening, isn't it? The sort of shoe-in for League One Player of the Season is at Gillingham. Cody McDonald, he scored 3 goals this season. I think he broke his foot in December, so it's a shame. Hopefully we'll watch the highlights and see him in the crowd or something. But aside from that, obviously they've got Bradley Dack. Bradley Dack has scored. Is anyone else buying that as a surname? Because I'm not.
I just thought he'd sort of created that, because can't you do that nowadays?
Yeah, I think so.
You could always do it, but he's just be one name, Dak.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I don't think I'd be able to resist the temptation if my surname was Dak to call my kids things like Donald and Daffy and whatever. He's got 15 goals and 10 assists. Everyone knows that he's a really, really good player. Every Cov fan knows that their second top scorer is a really good player. Rory Donnelly has got 10 goals for them.
Also, every Cov fan knows that Bradley Dack was the last player to score against Coventry and end up on the losing side.
Yeah, I mean, that's a cracking stat. You've done yourself a real service there. I'd be honest with you, outside of the fact that Jake Hessenthaler is Andy Hessenthaler's son, I'm not even sure about that. I'm not particularly au fait with the rest of their squad. Sorry, guys. Like I say, just read Sideways Sammy. It's better. They are in like I say, no great form. Of the last 6, they've won 2, drawn 2, and lost 2. Their home form is quite a lot better. They have won 4, drawn 1, and lost 1. But it's pretty much immaterial, isn't it? Because there's no way of us going there and getting anything, playing as we're playing. Is that a fair assessment? I think it probably doesn't need confirming. Yeah, so that's that. So that's that miserable, depressing pile of... I'm actually quite surprised at how reserved it was. I thought it could have been a lot worse than that.
Well, what gets me is, I think we all know, we're going to get people saying, oh, it was depressing, oh, I couldn't listen to it. But if you're not angry about what's going on, if you're not depressed about that, then what are you doing supporting a football team? Come on.
Part of me wants to say fair play to you. Part of me thinks maybe that you're more emotionally stable or mature or whatever it is. But I don't really mean that. That's what. If I really thought like that, then I wouldn't feel like I do about it.
You're not going to care about anything. If you don't care about that demise, then nothing's going to hit you. We may as well have just lost every game. Yeah. And you'd probably still be there smiling.
Well, that's where I'm coming to the... Can I be bothered to go front is, against Sheffield United, can I really be asked to go through the whole rigmarole of them having a lap of honour again?
Oh, God.
And it'd be quite nice to say goodbye to quite a few of the players. Thanks for lowering yourself to play for us for a year or 2 or 4 in John Fleck's case, because you're obviously more mighty than we are, and go forth and have a quality career in the Championship and Premier League while we continue to suffer. But
can you put in a sign, please?
put it on Jimmy's chin.
It's just, I suppose, while Sam Ricketts does irritate me, I just have a special place in my disregard for John Fleck, because he still gets lots and lots of praise, and everyone.
I don't feel it quite as strongly as you guys, but I'll let you have your piece.
Well, sort of people seem to think he's this brilliant player, and it's just, I've never ever come out of a game and gone, shit, we were awful today. But at least John Fleck stood out, and for me, that's the difference between a good player and a good player in a good team, or a nothing player in a crap team. He's just... It'd be interesting to see where he goes with his career, because I'm not doubting the guy's got technical ability. I'm not stupid. I can see the guy's got whatever he's, talent and things like that. But again, with another season where he's barely registered on the goals, barely registered on the assists, probably been at fault for a good 5-6 goals this season due to just being sloppy or just being muscled off the ball or not even putting in a challenge. It's just we can't play with a central midfielder like that, and he's one of those players where it's amazing he's played the amount of games for us over 4 years, but I'm just not bothered that he's going, and
well,
I'm sort of beginning to be glad about it.
We don't need to worry about it because we've got the Gerch coming in. We've got Vladimir Gerchev. That's all we need to worry about. Right, I'm wrapping it up. If you want to get in touch with us, the email address is neelamptyshow@gmail.com. The Twitter is @neelamptyshow. Check out Sideways Sammy's previews, which are excellent. Check out the Lonely Seasons reviews. That doesn't sound right, does it? But you know what I mean. That's the Lonely Season commentary. Again, just Google it. You know how to use the internet. But more importantly, go and check out Neil's latest blog post, skybluesblog.co.uk. It's great to have him back. Obviously, I'm going to talk about him as if he's not here. I think possibly more succinctly, in fact, very much more succinctly and eloquently, perhaps, put than our diluted ramblings with me and Paul chipping in. It's a really, really lovely piece. Go and have a look at it. Thank you very much, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Neil.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for sticking with us, guys. Bye.